Hello. So, a lot's been going on over the past month as everyone is freaking out about this coronavirus. And, you know, I just want to share some thoughts on this whole epidemic and what I really think of it and how people are reacting. You see, there have been many diseases over a long period of time of human history, and there have been many things other than viruses that kill people, like drunk driving and plane crashes and earthquakes and tsunamis and tornadoes and volcano eruptions and war and abortion and and holocausts, like there have been so many things that have killed off huge groups of humans as well as the billions of animals that humans are slaughtering constantly. And not to diminish the impact it has when you have loved ones who die that you know. I know that's emotional, but am I expected to believe that thousands of people dying is significant? I mean, there are thousands that are dying all the time, and even more being born than are dying. It's like, I'm not very impressed. I'm really not very impressed by all the media reports that I happen to see, even on the TV in the break room at work. It's like there is something far more concerning than this coronavirus. It is the effect on the economy. What this effect this is having on people who, are really having a hard time. People who have to stay home even from work and are not making money. Businesses that have to close, that end up going bankrupt. And so there's going to be more death as a result of people ending up homeless and without health insurance that they otherwise might have. People starving, freezing out in the cold, being homeless, like not getting medical treatment. Like, there's going to be more death from the effects on the economy of these orders for people to social distance and stay at home. There's going to be far more deaths caused by that than people dying of health-related complications to actually getting this virus. And does anyone ever think of that? No, because humans are not smart. And look, I'm not a scientist or a doctor, but I want to tell you something that's very basic logic, very basic common sense. Well, it's not common, but that's beside the point. See, the reasons that these viruses, these epidemics, diminish over time is not because a virus ceases to exist anymore. Because viruses continue to reproduce and spread for forever, basically. This coronavirus is not going to go away in a few months. It's going to be here for easily the next 100 years, possibly forever. But what will happen is, over time, the number of cases of people getting this virus and dying from this virus will decrease over time. Not because the virus goes away, but because all of the people who were weakest against this particular virus die, and then the ones who survive become immune because their immune system was strong and they already fought it off. This is basic natural selection, folks. You know, the ones that are strong enough to resist whatever thing kills off the others, they survive, and the ones who don't survive, they die, you know. That's just the way it always works. And of course, there's the whole, there's the whole reproduction, the ones that live reproduce. But that's irrelevant because I don't reproduce. Even however long I live, I still don't reproduce. But this is just a fact. Yes, there are going to be many people who get this virus and die because they can't breathe. I could even die theoretically, but I'm probably strong enough that I won't. But let's face the fact. Whether you get coronavirus or something else kills you, we're all going to die eventually anyway. And I think it's good at this time to reflect upon death and what it really means, because I have a feeling that most of what people do is actually centered around avoiding death. That's the thing about it. Death is a scary subject for many, and it's an interesting thought, isn't it? Because we all know we're going to die. I think we all know that, although some of us try to act like we don't. And you will notice that the major world religions are concerned not so much with this life, but the afterlife. And I think that that religions would cease to exist if death wasn't a thing. In fact, religions require death in order to be important. Christianity being all concerned with who goes to heaven or hell, for example. And I just think that it's very important, whoever you are, to come to terms with the fact that you're going to die. We're all going to die. And what does this mean? And I think that reflecting on death helps you give purpose to your life. Because the fact that we're going to die makes you realize that we're here for a short time. And what we do, some of it has a lasting impact and some of it does not. In fact, if you think about the billions of humans that have existed, very, very few of the humans do we actually know their names. We know some of their names, like Adolf Hitler and Albert Einstein and Barack Obama and whatever, you know what I mean? Just various famous people. They're famous because they invented something, or they're famous because they killed people in a war, or they're famous because they were some government politician. And when I think about my own life, here's what I think. I think that I'm a person who really wanted to make a difference, and years ago, in my early 20s, I began trying to learn a lot, and I wanted to know the truth about God and the afterlife and all that sort of thing, and more, of course, I came to the conclusion that God is just a silly idea humans made up because they're scared of death. And I've been thinking about this recently because people are going to become even more religious, I think, as a result of this whole virus scare. Because what happens is there's a psychological response. People, they think about death, and then they start thinking that oh well, I'm gonna die. What happens to me after I die? So there's this whole thing. Death is related to this whole idea of an afterlife. And this is a very interesting thing because I specifically remember an incident where I was reading various books trying to figure out what was true about Christianity. People know that I'm an atheist, but they don't know the journey I've gone through. They really don't. And they just think that I don't know enough, and I read so much of the Bible. I read so many Christian books. I read so many things. I listened to so many videos. And here's the thing. I remember how I was trying to learn all this stuff, and I was trying to figure out, how do I know what's true about any of this? And I remember when my mom would interrupt me with something else. I don't remember what it was, what she wanted me to do, or whatever. And I got very angry, thinking, wait, because in my mind I was thinking, wait, me believing the right thing or not determines whether I go to heaven or hell. So how is whatever she's saying to me more important than that? And I came to the realization that my mom did not understand the gravity of the situation I was dealing with. That all my life I was fed this message, well, you have to believe this certain thing, otherwise you go to hell. And there's this whole fear thing. It's a fear thing is what Christianity is. And to this day, I still think Christianity is one of the worst things to ever exist. Worse than the coronavirus, seriously. But I think that what happens is when there is a threat, whether there's a fear of hell or the fear of death, when people become afraid, they become very, very selfish. People are all trying to protect themselves, and they're trying to protect themselves and their family members from anyone who they think might be sick and give them the coronavirus. So people are all in defensive mode. When people get scared, then it's like they will protect themselves or the people close to them that they immediately care about, and they will not care about others as much. And at this time, I really think about how people become selfish and, like, for example, people, buy all the toilet paper. Everyone knows about this. This is what's going on in America. This will be known as the toilet paper crisis of 2020. How you can't find toilet paper in any stores hardly anymore because people bought it all out. I don't know how they did it, but people bought all the toilet paper and then others can't get any. And so I think what happens is whenever disaster strikes, there are going to be people who they survive because they were selfish. The most selfish will honestly probably be the most likely to survive. And see, this is what happens over time. Is there's something that happens with humanity that is different than any other species of animal. Now, with other species of animals, the weather, environmental factors, the food supply in their local area, all these things determine, who lives or dies, basically, who lives and reproduces and who dies. But humans are unique because humans have a society unlike any other. See, no other animal drives cars and flies airplanes and transports food and other things from one country to another across the ocean. You know what I mean? Like, humans are unique in that we have a thing called money. And then another thing unique with humans is doctors, nurses, and healthcare, and surgeries, and all kinds of things that other animals can't do. Other animals can't perform open heart surgery, and things like that. Other animals, when the females can't give birth to their young, they can't perform a C-section like what had to be done with my mother. Otherwise I wouldn't be here, and she would have died in childbirth if it wasn't for that. But humans with surgeries and medication and doctors, healthcare, like humans have an interesting situation, because now it's not about who is the strongest, it's not about who's the smartest, it's really about who has the most money. And money drives the world. People know this in human society, and the thing is, who has money and who doesn't is not about who's the smartest, and it's not about who's the physically strongest necessarily either. It's all about how lucky you are. As you may know, people who are born in families where they're already rich have access to more opportunities, and they often become rich because they inherit money from their parents, and they can afford to go to these expensive schools and get degrees so that they can get more higher paying jobs. So the rich become richer, but the poor become poorer. You know what I mean? And I'm not sure how I got into this topic, but this is very interesting. See, so what happens is you could be a complete idiot, and you could be very physically unhealthy in a lot of ways, but you can extend your life through medical care. You can extend your life through surgery, you can extend your life through medication and other types of things by use of money and medical care in a way that no other animal besides humans can do. But if you don't have money, you may be the best person, you may be the kindest, most compassionate, loving, and most intelligent individual, and the most talented person, but you may still not be able to make money. And I think about, what has happened in my life personally, because I grew up in poverty pretty much my whole life. My parents getting divorced, my mother selling everything she had just to try to pay the lawyer fees during the divorce of my parents, and to get custody of me because my father wanted to take me away. And then, basically, here's the fact of the matter is, my mother's in credit card debt she was never able to pay off, and we lived on government assistance pretty much the whole time I was growing up. And that was how we lived, and we still never had enough money to pay the bills and buy the food that we needed. And I remember how I used to go eat the plants at the creek because they were free. I could have killed myself eating the wrong plants. I didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, the point is, then things changed. I got my job at Hy-Vee, and then, I worked real hard at that job, and I did good. But unfortunately, that it still didn't work out, because it wasn't a full-time job, and every time that I got a raise, our rent would simply go up because we were on subsidized housing based on income. And my life did not start to turn for the better until I got hired by Brilliant, this company here on my shirt. And it gave me a new start, gave me a full-time job, and I was not just working 40 hours, I was working 50 hours for the first months that I was working there, because of the mandatory overtime. And I'm really glad to. But the thing is, my financial situation improved not because I became smarter or because I did anything different in my life. It wasn't because of choices I made. It was just dumb luck. That's really what it was. It was dumb luck. And that's the way things really go. I was contacted by a recruiter. I applied for this job. I got it, and I worked just as hard at that job as I did my job at Hy-Vee. The only difference was I was getting paid twice as much and working twice as many hours. So now here I am in my own apartment, and in a month, it's like April 3rd, I think, right now, and May 15 will be my 33rd birthday. I'm almost 33, and I finally am having a life. It's crazy. And I know that I'm going to die eventually, but I feel like my life just barely got started. Finally living an adult life, having my own apartment and working my full-time job. I'm feeling really good about it, and I had so much in my mind recently, and it's like, ooh, I can't die now. I have so much to do. I finally have my own place to live, and I just don't want this stupid coronavirus to destroy that. I don't want this whole epidemic and the panic of society to ruin what I finally got. And so I actually don't think about the coronavirus. Yeah, I could get it, I could die maybe, I don't know. But that's not what I think about. Instead, I just think about how, because of the panic and the fear of society, the government is telling people to do stupid things. Seriously. You know what I mean? All the stay-at-home order and businesses closing down. Like I said, it's going to cause more death long term. People are going to die. Whether or not they get the virus or not, they're just going to lose so much money. You know what I mean? And it's losing health insurance, and it's just really sad. I mean, because this is having a major impact. This is not sustainable. Eventually society will calm down, probably after everyone's dead, so there's no one left alive to talk about the coronavirus. But one way or another, the virus will still go on. People are still going to die of coronavirus and the flu and drunk driving and every other type of thing that kills us. For the rest of human history. But I still think people are making a bigger deal out of this coronavirus than really they should. Can we all just admit that we're all going to die anyway? And you can extend your life a little bit by trying to practice social distancing and washing your hands and try to prevent getting the coronavirus. But I think it's good to think about death at this time. And it's important to not let your whole life become all about fear. Because, yeah, there's a lot to be afraid of in this world. But does it do any good to be afraid? No, not really. Because what can you do about it? You can fear death, but you can't stop from dying. And you can fear the coronavirus, but you can't stop yourself from getting the coronavirus. No, you can't. You still have to shop for groceries. and some of us still have to go to work. You know, there's no way. So basically, sooner or later, everybody gets the coronavirus or whatever other epidemic there is. And just you watch. There will be other epidemics, there will be other viruses, and then people will panic about that. But 50 years from now, nobody's even going to remember the coronavirus of 2020. It's like people are just strange. I don't know. I'm quite amused just watching people's reaction during this time, how they're all acting and how afraid everybody is. I don't know. Perhaps for the best if humanity does go extinct. The other animals would certainly do better without humans murdering them all the time. And I think about that quite often too. I mean, sure, the downside is that the innocent ones like me will die who do not cause the same harm that the majority of humans do. But on the plus side, the more humans die, the less pollution on this planet, the less killing of animals for people who want to eat meat, dairy, and eggs, and honey, and all sorts of things that require the death of animals. And so it's really hard not to see the death toll rising among humans as a good thing. It's really getting harder and harder for me to see it as a bad thing. And it's hard to admit because, I'm pro-life, but at the same time, being pro-life for one life means being pro-death for the lives that kill that life. And that's the tricky part. Because it's like everybody seems to have to make a choice in which life they value or not. We're all very selective in who we want to live and who we want to die. But at the same time, we don't get to choose that anyway. So why do I torture myself? What's going to happen happens because of the actions of other people who don't listen to me. People don't listen to me. People don't do what I say. But you know what? Here I am, and I say what I say anyway. So if this little rant of mine you found enjoyable in some way, then great. And if not, then just ignore me. Doesn't matter. I don't care.